Hello, it's exactly 6 p.m. in Washington, D.C., 10 p.m. here in Accra, and 1 a.m. in Jerusalem, Israel. Good evening, and welcome to News at 10 on TV3 and 3FM 92.7. We're live from the News Hub at Adisawe Kanda in Accra. I'm Stephen NT. Let's first take a look at today's major news highlights. Gunshots in Bolgatanga, the Upper East Regional Capital, Tuesday afternoon left residents running for cover. The aggression is reported to have been over a piece of land being claimed by sides of a chieftaincy dispute. There is currently heavy security presence within the township. Also tonight, the Supreme Court has set June 7 to give its judgment on an application for interpretation brought before it by lawyers for former NCA Board Chair Eugene Bafo Bonny and 4 others. The 5 accused persons are seeking full pre-trial disclosure of all documents and witnesses the state intends to rely on in their prosecution. And tonight, the Bank of Ghana remains resolute in its directive to commercial banks to meet the 400 million minimum capital requirement by December 2018 deadline. Second Deputy Governor Elsie Ado Awaji said the local banks are still open to other options in meeting the requirement. Those are our major news highlights. Remember, we're live on 3FM 9.
This is a registered product, all right. It's supposed to be dispensed in a pharmacy. You come with a prescription. But unfortunately, we are finding a lot of them in licensed chemical shops, which are not supposed to stock prescription-only medicines and other pharmacy-initiated medicines. They are only supposed to sell over-the-counter medicines. That is why they are called OTC licensed chemical shops. However, we occasionally come across those of a higher strength, like for this one, this 120 milligram. And those ones, we are finding just few of them in the system. This 120 milligram. This is 225 milligrams. So far, this is what we have found over the period that we have been. I think it's a total of about 80 tablets. Okay. So we've asked them to tell us where he bought it from. We are investigating him, and he's also cooperating. And I think what has come out that most of them, they say, like, they buy from peddlers. But our main concern is with this one, how they get them. So I think we also are working on this one so that we'll see how best we can restrict the distribution.
And still in relation to the Tramadol, pressure group Occupy Ghana has called on government to take immediate steps to curtail the abuse of Tramadol. Occupy Ghana said in a statement the government must urgently take steps to tackle the illegal trade in Tramadol. It recommended a 3-pronged approach: medical, law enforcement, and prevention, as well as rehabilitation. The pressure group is asking the Ministry of Health to appoint a group to research the extent of the problem. It was concerned that tramadol addiction present a health problem and of great severity. Let's quickly get on to Skype now. We do have Nana Sapong Ajimambedu, a member of Occupy Ghana, joining us on Skype. Ms. Ajimambedu, thank you extremely. So will you say that we've waited for this to come to us, that instead of taking remedial measures, we didn't, and we sat watching for tramadol to swamp us this bad?
Yeah, thank you very much and good evening. I would say that we sort of delayed a bit in tackling this problem and allowing it to get to where it is. Although we do not think it's gotten to a very, very serious level, I think that at this stage we would have to start tackling the issue head on and very early before it becomes a bigger problem for all of us to try and contain.
And you are recommending a three-prong approach. You think that medical, law enforcement, and prevention, as well as rehabilitation, should be the approaches. But if we do not know the extent of abuse of tramadol, who are using it? How many people are at risk of whatever the effect of tramadol use are? How then do we begin to apply any prong of approaches?
Yeah, that's why we, in approaches, we asking the Ministry of Health to appoint a group to research the extent of the problem. So that group will go deeper to understand how far it's reached. It will train doctors to recognize signs of tramadol addiction. So through that, doctors will be able to put the data down. So as we get all this data in, we'll get to know the extent to which tramadol has really gotten into the system that we are in. So we need to do a serious research, get this research team down to do a lot of investigation on how far tramadol has got into. And from the way it's going and listening to what the FDA is saying, it's like getting it from peddlers. I don't think that the peddlers easily acquired without help from higher ups. So I'm suspecting that this thing goes beyond just peddlers, selling this thing around, and that the investigations go way deeper than just these peddlers. They may be the frontmen. It's becoming similar to a narcotics trade, whereby we have these drug peddlers on the street selling to people, but behind the scenes are very, very strong and powerful people who are actually indulging in this trade, and we should look at that aspect very well, especially with the law enforcement agencies. I mean, if some are compromised, we should also look at that. But we should really, really take this thing seriously, or else it will be a problem on our hands.
We all acknowledge that the recommended dosage of 50 mg and 100 mg are, the ones recommended for intake, but the excessive doses of 200 mg up to 250 mg, which is the illegal one, is what is causing the problem. But I recognize you mentioning that Ministry of Health needs to set up a group to investigate and all of that, but I need you to share with me what your own findings on this issue has been, because you issued a very extensive statement. I reckon that you may have a little bit more insight of the extent of the problem before you release the statement.
We are also doing a little bit of fishing on the ground. So for now, I can't divulge what we have gotten so far. But with a lot of these car accidents happening on the street, we suspect that some of these drivers may have been under the influence of tramadol, and that's when the effects finally wore off, they begin to feel so tired and worried to even start crashing vehicles and causing people to perish. So we are also doing a little bit of digging, because I mean, we just do not see this to be on the surface as something that is just springing up. It's becoming more like, beginning to look like an illicit drug trade which is going on in the background. Like how in America people sell stuff like what I was going to say, ecstasy to people in clubs and the like. This is becoming a bit of ecstasy being sold on the streets to very, very common individuals who really do not have much influence in society, and that they are being taken advantage of. So as time goes on, whatever that we find, we will definitely let that come out. But for now, we are just asking the government to really take this thing seriously. For someone to be selling 200 milligrams, 225 milligrams, he didn't manufacture it himself. It definitely came from somewhere. And whoever is bringing the drugs into this country that person must be fished out, and then let the law, take its course.
What you just said actually raises the critical issue of interagency cooperation, managing this problem holistically. How would you recommend that the various state agencies work together in order to clamp down the menace tramadol poses?
Yeah, that's why we are calling on NACOB, the FDA, and the Pharmacy Council to work together, investigate how these drugs are getting to the country through our various ports and borders. And also, as they've started with the licensed chemical sellers, track them down, see where they are getting these things from. So it's not going to be just one agency that can do it, but all three of them, especially these three that I've mentioned, including the Ghana police, should also get on board and start tracking down these drugs and the trails that they pass to be able to reach the ordinary person who is the one using it.
And my final question to you, Mr. Agyemang-Badu, in an era where there have been calls for legalization of marijuana, for example, are you worried that the continuous option provided by tramadol, where people have been cited completely intoxicated beyond anything they can do by just swallowing a pill of tramadol, are you worried that attention might slightly be, well, not slightly, but attention might be gradually shifting from the use of marijuana to tramadol? You mentioned equating that to narcotics. Is that your worry, really?
We are not worried. I mean, we shouldn't take our eye off the ball with marijuana and the other illicit drugs, but looking at how tramadol is and how it's not being regulated by even the International Narcotics Control Board, I think we should also add that to the list. If we could petition the International Narcotics Control Board to add tramadol to the list of opioids it controls, that would be fine, like how it controls how morphine and other opioids which are sold, which are used by hospitals. I mean, already we do have them being sold in the designated dosages, but I mean, for people to be going that far, means that people are beginning to see something new from tramadol, which they can make some money from. So we shouldn't take our eye off the ball from the others, but we should also add tramadol to the list of illicit drugs which are being sold on the Ghanaian market.
Right, Nana Sapong Agyemang-Badu, we're grateful for your time. Thank you very much. Nana Sapong Agyemang-Badu is a member of Occupy Ghana. I'm Stephen NT, and this is News at 10. We're live from the News Hub at Adesawe. Kanda, you can hear me on 3FM 92.7. We'll be right back with more news.
Bichabiana maniaje
Which, when reported with the highest ethics of journalism, bring out the perspectives that matters most to you. That's what News 360 is all about. I seek to climb higher, dig deeper, and go further to bring you 360 degrees of the news and what happens thereafter. I'm Natalie Fort. Join me on News 360 every weekday at 7 p.m.
Welcome back. Now, the Me Too campaign is a very popular social media campaign that puts the spotlight on all forms of sexual violence against women and the systems, beliefs and cultures that enable this act to thrive. In this piece, my colleague Solis Rose Quarte takes a look at why, in spite of its prominence in the Western world, the movement has failed to take firm root in Ghana.
The Me Too movement is a campaign which went viral in October 2017 as a hashtag that was used on social media to help demonstrate the widespread prevalence of sexual harassment, especially in the workplace. The social media campaign was primarily instigated by public allegations of sexual misconduct against A-list Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein. In an unprecedented fashion, victims came out to name and shame alleged perpetrators of sexual violence and abuse against them. In a domino effect, top guns across various sectors in the United States of America were implicated and accused. Even the White House was not spared. The Me Too campaign caught on and spread like wildfire, transcending borders into Europe and even Asia. In a continent and a country like Ghana, which sometimes takes pride in latching onto Western viral trends, why did the Me Too campaign not become prominent in Ghana?
What the Me Too campaign has is an environment that, with time, reduced victim blaming. It's an environment that, with time, increased the ability to speak out in all levels.
The reason the Me Too movement hasn't taken off and needs a little bit of conviction from, for lack of a better word, victims, is because they need assurances that if they stood up on that pedestal to scream loud, the people would hear them. The people will come and console them, and together they could form this force in which we are sure that sexual harassment stops.
For most women, the issue of sexual harassment is a blatant and pressing one. According to 6 years of statistics from the Domestic Violence and Victims Support Unit of the Ghana Police Service, from 2011 to 2016, approximately 6 women are likely to be raped every week, as opposed to 1 man likely to be raped in an entire year. In light of these statistics, one of the many questions that seem to pop up is, why do victims not speak up?
I was working in a company. This man was my boss. The first time he sexually harassed me, I just didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. I was like, is this even happening? Yes, it's happening. Okay, now what am I going to do? I don't know what I'm going to do. What am I going to say? Nothing. I said nothing. My business is communications. I think it is important to recognize that speaking out is hard.
I feel sorry, and it hurts me on behalf of my husband, my son, and all his friends, that we have accepted this narrative on behalf of men, that they are weak, they are insensitive, they are loose, they are lunatics. These are reasonable beings who are, for now, at the topmost of leadership around the world. And in the next story, we are saying that they are violating little girls because they are weak.
With regards to the issue of harassment in the workplace, she added that companies were more interested in protecting their image.
Why is a system at the workplace designed to offer sex to people who are willing to give it? For me, that is the problem. And who is offering it? That person is the problem. If you're going through a job process where you go through an interview, you do well, you deserve to rise, you rise. Who is interested in flipping off her bra?
The psychological effects of any form of sexual harassment cannot be downplayed. However, gender activist Afi Agbenyon says they often are.
A phrase that I came to very much understand is that shame is lethal. It is deadly. So once there's an environment that shames, people are unable to open up.
We make women and girls responsible for what happens to the penises of men. You're responsible because he's aroused. You're responsible because he's tempted. What we have failed to do as a culture is say to boys and men, you are responsible for your body.
Ghana is widely recognized as a patriarchal society with traditional practices and norms which create an enabling environment for sexual violence to thrive. They agree the society has failed to ask the right questions.
What we always ask instead is, but why don't girls speak up? What it does is it continues to tell the public this. If girls would speak up more, we wouldn't have a problem. No. If men didn't rape, sexually abuse, sexually harass, extort sex for grades, we wouldn't have a problem. If teachers found guilty of sexually abusing students didn't just lose their position, but lost their profession, you would see a turnaround immediately.
Very interesting and detailed story there, though. Thanks very much, Solace Roscote, for that expose. Now, a standard operating procedure has been launched to help track and identify human trafficking victims. Statistics indicate that 1 out of 3 persons is trafficked to Europe or other developed countries, either to engage in prostitution or domestic servitude.
Ghana remains a destination for human trafficking. Adults and children are trafficked to the US, Europe and the Middle East to either work as prostitutes or in other modern slavery. Children as young as 3 are engaged in the fishing industry, forced to do hard and dangerous work to earn a profit for their masters in the coastal communities. Project manager at the International Organization for Migration, Alexander Billings, is worried about Ghana's situation.
Ghanaians are being exploited in Ghana, and this, of course, is probably the most prevalent or common phenomenon, manifestation of trafficking. So, and it's usually children that are involved in this. So, especially in Volta region, Central region, and Greater Accra, we see children that are being exploited mostly for labor.
A standard operation procedure has been launched in Accra to enable stakeholders track the situation in the country.
What this is basically, it's a roadmap for addressing this issue and combating trafficking, but it's not enough. What really needs to happen is implementation of the standards and the guidelines that we've all come together to endorse and say this is what we hope to do. But no, the document alone will not do anything. It takes people.
Human trafficking is a global concern as over 40 million people worldwide are in modern slavery, 152 million in child labor. The IOM said it has 90,000 human trafficking cases in its database.
And that's how we wrap up with News at 10. Thank you extremely for making time. Up next is Sports Unlimited. On behalf of the crew here, good night. There is more news at 3news.com.